I'd like to welcome Chef Kevin from Leah's Pantry. I can't wait to see what you're going to make for us.
Yeah, just looking for a lid. Yeah. This will be fine, actually. Welcome in. Happy December, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everyone's staying warm. It's a little cold. It's a little rainy, but you know how it goes with California. We really need the rain, so put on your rain jacket, put on your umbrella.
Yeah, I was really excited when it stopped pouring. I said, it's really going to help with the drought.
Yeah. I know I feel like we get really intense flooding, but we do need the rain, so we have to remember that. All right, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get started, so we have some stuff just to cover in the beginning. People will continue to trickle in. Welcome, everybody. My name is Chef Kevin, and I'm a nutrition educator with Leah's Pantry. And today we're just going to be going through this slideshow and doing a little cooking demo. The topic of these workshops is waste reduction. So we're going to be going through some tips for how to reduce waste, especially around the holiday season. It can be a time that's very wasteful in terms of food. So really quickly, can everybody hear the audio? Can anyone see the video and the slides? If you can't, please let me know. Drop it in the chat. You can unmute yourself. You could say something. If you would like to, you can show your video. There would definitely be opportunities for everybody to speak. So feel free to join in when I ask folks to share opinions and share stories. Really quick norms just for being online on these events. Be mindful of your mic. Try to use the raised hand function if there's something that you want to say. Share the airtime. So we're only here for a short hour, so try to keep it to under a couple minutes. Respect and confidentiality. Everything that we do here stays here. Yeah, any other norms, any other things people want to add on to this before we continue? I think we might be good, but if you have one, please feel free to share it in the chat box or say it out loud. Really quickly, if you're on a phone, *6 is mute and unmute, *9 is raise hand. And if you have it on your computer or your mobile app, hopefully everyone's familiar with Zoom by now. It's probably going to continue to be around considering the state of the world. Yeah, so this is a part of a 3-workshop series. Workshop number 1 is where's the waste? Number 2 is it safe? And number 3 is it trash? And for every recipe demo, for every workshop, there's a different recipe demo, and you will earn $6 in vouchers that can be redeemed at local farmers markets that we can talk about a little bit later. We'll email out the information. You just have to fill out a short survey. So really quickly, introductions is going to be the first about 15 minutes of this. Then we're going to move on to talking about some waste, cooking demo, and then we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end, hopefully, as long as we don't take too long with the demos. Before we go into that, any questions? All right. So really quickly, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Kevin Madrigal. I go by Chef Kevin for the cooking classes because I am a trained chef and nutrition educator. Before I worked with Leah's Pantry, I helped start and ran the culinary program at Farming Hope. It's a really awesome nonprofit restaurant in San Francisco. You can just check them out at farminghope.org. But basically, they train formerly incarcerated and formerly homeless individuals in the kitchen to try to get them into sustainable housing and employment. I'm from South San Francisco, so really close by. And I also say my family, I'm from South San Francisco by way of Zapopan. That's where my family is from, in Guadalajara, Mexico. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. And would love to go do some introductions. You can either type them and put them into the chat room, or we have time for at least a few people to share and unmute themselves. So just say your name, what's one of your favorite holiday foods or meals, and something that you would like to learn from this series. You can use the raise hand function, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak, and we can kind of take turns.
Well, I can start. One of my favorite is holiday cookies. It always makes me feel like I'm a kid again.
Holiday cookies. Yeah, especially the sugar cookies, the icing, decorating your little trees. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I can add something.
Uh-huh.
Yes. I'd like to know some dishes that we can make that are not boring, but don't have all these cream cheeses and sour creams and cheeses.
Oh.
If possible.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. A lot of the dishes that you're finding have a lot of cream cheese and sour cream.
Yes, and cheese. So everything is heavy on the stomach, and it's tough when you eat and drink. You like that?
Yeah, definitely. Great one. Thank you for sharing, Julie. Thank you for sharing, Tina. Anybody else want to introduce themselves? I think let's try to get at least a couple more people. I'd love to hear people's favorite meals and stuff they want to learn. If I was in like teaching mode, because I do teach children, I would just start randomly calling on people from the audience. So let's avoid that by just having some nice volunteers. Anybody else? We have some time. Don't be shy.
I like to learn how to make healthy breakfast dish.
Healthy breakfast. Keiko, is that how am I saying your name correctly?
Yes.
Keiko, thank you for sharing healthy breakfast. Actually, the recipe that I'm going to be doing for today's is a breakfast recipe that can be kind of modified to be eaten at any time of day. So just hold on. In about 30 minutes, you'll see a healthy breakfast meal that I like to make and cook. Anybody else? One more thing. I saw that Anna joined. Anna is one of the dietitians with Leah's Pantry. Hello, Anna. Thank you for joining. Good to see you.
Hey, Kevin, looking good in the eatfresh.org t-shirt.
Gotta represent. All right. Anybody want to share before we move on? Last chance. What's your favorite holiday food or something you really want to learn? I do take people's requests into consideration for future classes. So if you really want to learn something specific, I might just do it for the next community day.
Also, I'd like to add on, if you could, potluck dish, something simple to make.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think
dishes that people
I think I see Ava has the hand up.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Happy holidays. My favorite is a green bean casserole.
Yes.
Yes.
Green bean casserole. That's a classic. Do you put the fried onions on top too? The crispy onions?
Yes, and there's ones you could do with bacon bits. It's a little more decadent.
Ooh, nice. Nice. So you can keep it vegetarian friendly, or you can throw in a little bit of bacon. It's totally
Yeah,
fine.
but yeah, I love it when you just like lots of garlic and fresh green beans, just like lightly blanched.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Thank you for sharing. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for sharing. We're gonna keep going. I see Gary mentioned soup in the chat box. What kind of soup? Is there any specific type of soup? I've made a lot of different types of soup in my career as a chef, so I'm a really big fan of pureed soups. One soup that I make around the holiday season that is always asked for by my family is butternut squash soup. So it's like a pureed butternut squash soup with coconut milk and ginger and garlic. So if there's some interest in that, I could definitely show one of those recipes. Meat and vegetable soup. It sounds good. All right. We're going to jump into the first topic of today's workshop. Trying to figure out where is the waste? Where is the waste of our food supply, of our food? So here we have 4 different sides of the food industry. We have food processors, farmers, customer-facing businesses, and then homes. Can I get some people to guess, either in the chat or you can unmute yourself? Feel free to raise your hand. Where do you think the most food waste comes from out of these 4 sectors of the food industry? Food processors, farmers, customers, homes. Any guesses? It's tough to guess. It's tough to guess. You know, use your best educated guess. All right, so we have Jane in the chat guessing home, as well as Julie's homes. And would anybody be willing to share why you think it's at homes and not somewhere else? And also customer facing areas. Yep. All right. Bing, here's a big pie chart that shows just how much food is wasted at each level of our food industry. So for those couple people that guessed homes, ding, 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 you were completely correct. Homes contribute to 42% approximately of food waste from our entire food industry. That is a really, really big part. It's almost half. The next biggest contributor is customer facing businesses. I almost want to say Julie with the words, with the choice of words that Julie had. Maybe Julie has taken this class before, but we love to see repeat students gain knowledge. So 42% in homes, 40% in customer facing businesses. And in general, the USDA estimates that over 30% of our entire food supply is wasted. So of that 30% that is wasted, this is where it all comes from. And yeah, this is a very, very big issue just because there are a lot of people that are still hungry today. We still have a lot of folks that are food insecure. At least 10% of the people in the US that identify as food insecure, which means they don't know where their next meal is going to come, or aren't secure, aren't confident that they will be able to get healthy food. So then food processors have 2% of the waste, and then farmers have 16%. These are a lot smaller contributors. In general, I think if they can make money off of the food, then they will, and they will try to minimize waste. But so, yeah, I have a little note here that the USDA and EPA are working together to cut the food waste by half by 2030. So I kind of wanted to talk about some reasons why that's important and how we can do that. So I kind of alluded to one or two of the reasons, but why? Can anybody give me some reasons as to why we should be reducing food waste, or why it's important to reduce food waste? Any ideas too? They don't have to be the exact wording. You can just say your thoughts.
Bad for the planet.
Bad for the planet. Julie, thank you for sharing. Totally bad for the planet. If we're growing food and putting all these resources into the planet, into growing these foods, and then they go to waste, it's kind of like it's a big waste. It's a big waste. Thank you for sharing. Any other reasons? Yeah, go ahead. I think you're muted. You might be muted. I can't see your name, sorry. Let me see.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Does it give off a different kind of a gas, not carbon, food waste?
Oh, you're saying food waste in terms of giving off gas and contributing to climate change, kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think not even just necessarily carbon, but like CO2 emissions, methane emissions. I mean, growing food at every level, depending on whether you're doing produce or meat, it does develop some of those gases and some of that stuff. So that's another reason to reduce food waste. We talked about, I'll go ahead and I'll click on, show you all the answers that we have listed up here. So number one is, we just talked about it, 10% of the people in the US at least are food insecure. So to help feed hungry people, to protect the planet, as Julie mentioned, because we can actually get more nutritious and tastier food. We'll talk about this a little bit, and I'll tell you all some examples of this, but a lot of times when we're actually throwing away food, we're throwing away some of the parts that have the best nutrients for us. We can practice creativity. We can save money. Who doesn't want to save money here? And if you don't, then let me know, because you can just send all that money over to me. Any other ideas? Anything else that's not listed on here? Yeah, I think these are basically all of the reasons to do it. I think one thing that isn't explicitly listed on here is just, I think that's like a cultural value. Like, I don't know, growing up, like my mom, like we always had to eat all the food that was in the refrigerator, and like wasting food just felt like taboo. It's like not something that you do. And I'm sure there are people here that maybe grew up in a similar environment.
Yeah, same here, Kevin. My mom always teach me you have to leave. Don't leave the rice.
Definitely. And I think especially if you have family members that come from areas that were maybe more in food insecure, it's, to honor those people that came before you, that survived off of very little. So there's this website here, savethefood.com, and it can just calculate how much money you could be saving, depending on your household size. So even if you're living on your own and just cooking for yourself, you could be saving $375 every year from just thinking about food waste and trying to use some tips on how to reduce food waste. So obviously, as this increases, this just doubles. A family of 2, $750 a year. A family of 4, $1,500 a year. That's at least like 1 month or 2 months of a car payment. So it could be very, very, significant when you add it up. So during the holidays, as I mentioned, millions of pounds of uneaten turkey, gravy, green beans, mashed potatoes, and all these other delicious seasonal trimmings, unfortunately, end up in landfills. So these are some tips that we've put together to share and to just practice best practices to fight food waste, especially during the holidays. We have create and stick to your shopping list. There's definitely additional waste. I want to add even to this, since we're talking about shopping, don't go shopping while you're hungry. Make sure that you have been well fed before you go to the grocery store, because I think it's been shown time and time again, if you go to the grocery store while you're hungry, you will tend to buy a lot more. And when we buy a lot more, sometimes we don't have time as things come up in the week, and things will go rotten or things will go to waste. So make a list, stick to it. Shop in your own refrigerator and pantry first. So shop here being, look inside your refrigerator before you go to the store and see like what stuff you actually have. I think you'll be surprised. I'm always surprised. I always find like a beet or something in the back that I didn't think I had that's still good. Leftovers. I love doing this. I have just, you can like collect your little takeout containers from restaurants, the deli containers, the plastic containers, and just give everybody a nice little pack of food to go home with. I just heated up some food yesterday from a friend's dinner from like a week ago. And it was really nice because I forgot about it and I didn't have to cook lunch. Befriend your freezer. Freezing is one of the best ways to hold food for a really long time. Virtually anything can be frozen as long as you learn how to defrost things safely. And then this other last point that we have is consider donating extra food. There's always food drives, especially around the holiday season, with stuff like non-perishable canned goods or dried goods. Is there any other? I would love to hear, as much as I'm here to share these tips with you. I know we have at least 15 other people here that all have experience around food. So is there any other tips that y'all have around fighting food waste and making the most of the food that you have? Yeah.
I make a soup. I take all the turkey bones and anything that's on the bones and any veggies, it all goes in the soup.
Perfect. That sounds great. That sounds like a great way to use some of your leftover. Oops, did I? No, I'm good. Sorry. That sounds like a great way to use your leftover produce, bones, everything from Thanksgiving. For soup, for doing stuff like stock too, you can always save your chicken bones, any other vegetable scraps in the freezer in a Ziploc bag or in a big like Gladware container, and then use those when you have enough to make some soup or make some stock. Any other tips? I know it's not just Diane in here that has some great food tips on fighting food waste.
Sometimes I give my pork bones to my dog.
That works too.
I do rinse it out though.
Yeah. That's good too. That's good too. I know when I was younger, my family's always had dogs. When I was younger, my mom would basically make them like almost like a soup type of thing with like the leftover chicken and stuff, and we would add it to their kibble, and they loved it. So they were never complaining about it.
I have a suggestion too. I think there's a website, I think it's Yumly, where you can put the things you have left over and it will make a recipe for you. Have you heard of that?
I have not heard of that, but I do. Let me see if I can.
I'm not sure if it's Yumly, but it's a company that started in Redwood City actually. And it's a website online. And what you do is you type in what you have left. I have broccoli, I have chicken, I have this or that. And it'll say, do you want onions? Do you want this? Do you want that? And put something together for your recipe.
That's a great idea.
I love that. Yumly. I have to check it out. This is one that Anna shared with me, savethefood.com. And basically, you can browse these recipes by different categories, and you can just go even by kind of ingredients here. So it just shows you a bunch of different ideas depending on what you have left to make stuff. So I think this is kind of similar to Yumly, but this one's a little bit more for inspiration. So definitely check that out here. I'll share the link for this one in the chat. Any other tips? Any last tips before we move on to the cooking demo portion?
I would add, communicate to your family and your friends what you're bringing. During Thanksgiving, my partner brought a pumpkin pie, like the big one from Costco.
Yeah.
And it turns out my husband bought the same big pumpkin pie. So we had two big pumpkin pies for Thanksgiving, and it just turned out to be way too much. So communicate with your party that what you're bringing, that way you don't double up on food you don't need.
I love that. That's a very good one. Thank you for sharing, Anna. I think that's very, very overlooked, but super important. I feel like everybody has a family group chat nowadays, so you can always just start a little chat, like everybody text what they're bringing. Make it as simple as that. Yeah, these are all really, really great tips. Yeah, I think the only other tip that I'll have, which kind of adds on to shopping your refrigerator and pantry, is just maybe at least like once a week do kind of almost like a deep clean of your refrigerator. I think especially with my fridge at home, with me and my mom both cook a lot, and I think things always get lost in the back of the refrigerator that are still perfectly good to eat. So definitely make sure none of that food goes to waste. All right. So up next, we're going to be doing a cooking demo. My hands won't be getting that dirty, but I think they're making a dough in this picture. But today's recipe, I picked a recipe from eatfresh.org, which is just the website that Leah's Pantry helps contribute to and run. There's a lot of different recipes on this website. Give me 1 second. Let me stop sharing really quickly and do this in like more of a full screen. So yeah, eatfresh.org is a great resource for any folks out there looking for new recipes or anything new for inspiration. This is a super, super simple, quick recipe. This is a Brussels sprouts, hash, and eggs. So really the main ingredients here are Brussels sprouts and eggs. We have some garlic as well. I can put this in the chat as well, just so y'all have access to it. And I'm gonna be making kind of a variation on it and just kind of letting you know how you could change the flavor of this Brussels sprouts dish. a little bit to make it maybe more seasonal, or to make it a dish. You can make this completely vegan without any eggs. You could add tofu, or you could just leave it completely on its own. It's really, the way that you cook this dish is really similar to one of my favorite recipes, which is just a braised cabbage dish. I like to think about Brussels sprouts as basically like little mini cabbages. So I think they have a very similar flavor, and working with cabbage can just be a lot easier since it's not as small. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. And like I mentioned earlier, if y'all have any questions at any point, or need any clarification, please let me know. This is, a space that's meant for y'all to learn. And so I want to do my best as an instructor to make sure to answer everybody's questions. So while the presentation was going on, I was just kind of trimming some Brussels sprouts, because that part can take a little while to actually do. But I just got my Brussels sprouts here. If they usually come loose like this. You can get them on the stalk as well. But in order to prep some Brussels sprouts at first, you have to cut off this big root part. And the cool thing that I really love about Brussels sprouts is, especially if you're getting them organic, you really don't need to wash them. You can give them a little rinse if you want, but most of the pesticides, most of the bugs will be on the outer leaves of the Brussels sprouts. And as soon as you cut off that root, a few of these outer leaves will just naturally fall off. And you'll be left with basically a very clean and like untouched Brussels sprout. So just based on how comfortable you are, definitely recommend washing it if you have anybody in your family that has, special food sensitivities or issues. But yeah, we just chop just the bottom half, and these leaves will naturally fall off. These leaves, you can keep them. What would be a way to use these like fallen leaves that we have on the side?
Compost.
We talked about a couple things.
Put it in the compost.
Yeah, I mean, compost for sure, compost all
Soup,
the time if you can.
Soup.
Soup, yeah, these could be great for a stock. You could give them a nice rinse, and these could be a base of a nice vegetable stock.
Your pet rabbit.
What was that?
Your pet rabbit.
Yeah, if you have a pet rabbit, for sure. One thing I know, these leaves, when they're fried up, they get really nice and crispy. So you could wash these, let them dry, and just actually fry them, or toss them with a little bit of oil and put them in the oven at a really high temperature, like around 425, 450 degrees, and you'll have a nice little snack. Yeah, I'm going to save those probably for some stock later today and put it in a little Ziploc and put it in the freezer. And now all we're going to be doing is taking these Brussels sprouts, chopping them up in half, and then basically shredding them. So just cutting them along the, just along the top, and just cut them into small little sections. This is almost like, sometimes there's those pre-made salads I know that are really popular. I feel like Brussels sprouts, when they have them in there, they kind of look like this. So we're just getting them nice and shredded. It'll look almost like a cross section of the cabbage. And we're just going to work through all of our Brussels sprouts for that. Like I mentioned, you could easily do this recipe with cabbage. It would have, a slightly different flavor. I think Brussels sprouts have a little bit more flavor just because they're smaller, but cabbage would work perfectly fine. Have any of y'all cooked Brussels sprouts like this before? We're going to be doing a hash. Maybe not. Maybe we haven't. It's good. Hopefully this is something new then. Gonna take a moment to cut these up. Really quick food safety tips. When we're cutting with a sharp knife, we want to make sure to have a nice handle on it. I like to use the pinch grip. You pinch with your thumb, your index finger, then you wrap the rest of your hand around the handle. Always cut on something that's flat. That's why I cut these Brussels sprouts in half, so then the flat side can stay on the board and it doesn't move around. Another thing you might notice is underneath my cutting board, I actually have a wet towel. And the wet towel just holds the cutting board in place and prevents it from really moving around a lot. That's a very, very big tip. I've seen a lot of people hurt themselves from a sliding cutting board and from improper knife use. So be careful. And I've even hurt myself too when I've improperly used knives before. Well, the other last quick food safety thing that I will mention is, as you're cutting with your offhand, I use this thing, I call it a claw. So I'm grabbing it, but I'm also pulling my fingertips underneath my knuckle so that if the knife goes up and hits my knuckle, it blocks it from hitting my fingertips, so I don't get any finger cuts. All right. Any questions so far?
Can you use a grater for this, Kevin, or would it be too watery?
That's a great question. A great question.
Maybe a mixed, maybe that would extract too much water from the Brussels sprouts.
I think it might. I think you could try a grater. And I mean, even if it did take out a lot of the water, you could just, cook it a little bit longer to try to get that water to dry off. But yeah, I would say cut it. I think this is the part of the recipe that takes the longest, and everything else will be relatively quick. But if you have to, I think you could try a grater. I have one, but this is looking pretty great without it. So, all right. I believe, let me double check the recipe. For the recipe, we're using 4 cups of Brussels sprouts, finely chopped. I would say I probably have about 2 cups. I'm just going to be doing kind of half the recipe. I've got a big pot over here. I'm going to be putting on about a medium high heat, or just about medium. I don't want it to burn. I do have, the recipe does call for garlic. My dad, when he first moved to America from Mexico, used to work at a kitchen where they use a lot of garlic. So they would chop a lot of garlic ahead of time and then keep it preserved in olive oil or canola oil. So that's like a tradition that we continue. So this is just easier than me always having to cut some garlic. So I'm just going to use a little bit. Excuse me. I'm just using a little bit of canola oil, cooking oil. About a tablespoon at most. I'm going to throw in our Brussels sprouts. Let me turn this a little bit. And then I'm going to throw in about a teaspoon of minced garlic. Could be about 2 or 3 cloves. I feel like when a recipe says 1 clove of garlic, that's how I know the recipe was incorrectly written, because every recipe should have at least 2 or 3 cloves of garlic. You can throw it right in the middle, right on top, and make some space. That'll all cook down at relatively the same pace.
I agree with the notion for garlic, Kevin.
What was that?
I highly agree with the notion for more garlic.
Yeah, always more garlic. And then I'm just going to be adding a little bit of salt, about a half teaspoon. I like to use kosher salt, just because it has a nicer feel with my hands. I can actually grab it, pinch it. I feel like I've just developed kind of a natural sense of, I know how much salt is in my hand from kosher salt, and it doesn't work the same with iodized salt because I think it's very, very sandy. But this is about, you could always start with less and then add more as you cook. It's about a half a teaspoon of salt. As soon as it's sizzling, we're just going to get that moving around the pot. So for this hash, in the recipe, basically we cook this down for just a minute or 2, then we drop in a couple eggs, put a lid on it, and let the eggs steam up and cook. Basically, once the egg whites are cooked, then our hash is done. Like I mentioned earlier, this is really, really similar to a recipe that I really love, which is a braised cabbage. So I'm going to kind of do a little bit of my own take on this recipe. I'm just going to move this a little bit over here. And so when I make a braised cabbage, basically
It'll look exactly the same. I'll have chopped up all of my cabbage, just almost like as if you were making a coleslaw. Add a little bit of garlic, start to saute it down. The cabbage is a little bit thicker, so it'll just take a little bit longer to cook. But one thing that I really love to do with cabbage is add some orange juice, even maybe orange zest, or even a little bit of maple syrup. I think maple syrup and Brussels sprouts go really well together in terms of flavors. And I think for the holidays, it's something that goes really well with just the rest of the spread that you're making. And so I think I'm trying to remember, I think it was Keiko that was maybe mentioning for the breakfast. This is a breakfast food, but this could also be cooked as just the veggies and be a side for any of your main meals for the holidays. And I love to make this too, because I've made this and the braised cabbage a bunch of times in the past for Thanksgiving meals, for Christmas meals. And oftentimes it's the only like vegetable, like fresh vegetable. And I think people, just as I think it was Julie was mentioning it, just as Julie was mentioning, you know, this is there during the holidays, there's a lot of food that has a lot of cheese or sour cream, or it's very heavy. So I like to make this and have this be an option for something a little bit lighter that's still really, really delicious and flavorful. So I'm gonna add a little bit of orange juice and then just a small splash of maple syrup. And then I'm still gonna be making this into the hash. But if I was just doing just the veggies for this, then I would add this orange juice and just let it cook down for another 5-ish minutes and basically just taste it for salt, pepper, and that would be it. I'm gonna add just a little splash of this maple. Also, want to point out this is real maple syrup. You can use the pancake syrup, but that will be a lot sweeter and won't have the same natural taste for maple syrup. So if you can get maple syrup, highly recommend it. All right, now I'm going to make a couple of spots here for the eggs. And I'm just going to crack them in. And I do not have a lid that fits it perfectly, but any lid that'll cover them up will do the job. So I'm gonna let that cook for a few minutes, just until those egg whites have set. Yeah, like I mentioned, you can season this however you want. When I'm making the braised cabbage for the holidays, there's a couple of different directions I can go. You can go kind of a sweeter direction with a little bit of orange juice, orange zest, maple syrup. You can also go in a savory direction, and there I would add a little bit of chili. Sometimes I'll fry a chili in the oil before I cook the braised cabbage in it. It's a good way to get that flavor, but without having to mince up a chili. And then I'll add just some salt, pepper, and it comes out really delicious. And even for the spicier version or for a more savory version, a little bit of orange juice can go a long way. And for this specifically, I do have some tortillas. I'm gonna be having my hash as a little taco. I love eating everything as tacos. I just think it's like, you can put anything, you can slap anything on a warm tortilla, put some salsa on it and call it a day. Actually, the braised cabbage dish, I've introduced my family in Mexico to it. And the way that I introduced them to it was just beans, just like beans from the pot or refried beans and cabbage and a little bit of cheese. And I eat that as a taco. So I really love that because it's plant-based. I don't think in general, my family in Mexico especially eats a lot of plant-based tacos or plant-based foods. So I think, when you're working with these are called cruciferous vegetables. So anything like cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, even cauliflower, all these things, I think there's many different directions that you can take them and they have a lot of flavor. So if you've never tried it, now you know. Give it a shot. I can see through this thing that the egg whites are nice getting set up. I'm just gonna give them probably another couple of minutes. Give me 1 second. All right, I'm gonna heat up a tortilla on the other stove while this is cooking. I don't know if you can really see this, but this is a little trick that I like to do. If I'm just heating up 1 or 2 tortillas, instead of heating up a whole pan for it, I have a gas lit stove. I just throw it straight over a low flame. It heats it up a lot faster, and it can give it like a nice little bit of toastiness or chard, which I really love. If you're heating up a tortilla over open flame, it's really doesn't take that long. It's maybe like 15-20 seconds per side.
Are you team flour or team corn tortilla, Kevin?
Who asked that?
You know who.
I think you should be able to tell by the size of this tortilla. I mean, both flour tortillas and corn tortillas can be delicious. I think in general, when I'm talking about tacos and eating a taco, for me, it's always a corn tortilla. You can do flour. A great option for flour tortillas too is if you're doing flour, you can always look for whole wheat. They have a little bit more whole grain. But corn tortillas are great. They're super, super inexpensive. They last forever. Basically forever. I'm trying to find my fresh black pepper now. Where'd it go? Here it is. I'm just gonna crack a little bit of pepper on these eggs. So this is the Brussels sprout hash. I wonder if the camera can like Brussels sprout hash. With a little bit of orange juice, a little bit of maple syrup, kind of give it those like warm flavors for the season. And I just have a tortilla that's nice and heated up. And I'm going to try to put this on there without breaking the egg. Hey, not bad.
Can you substitute anything for the Brussels sprouts?
Yeah, I think for the Brussels sprouts, like I was mentioning, it's a cruciferous vegetable. So it's one of these a little bit hardier, leafier vegetables. So great substitutions for the Brussels sprouts in my mind would be cabbage, even broccoli, even something like kale or chard or collard greens. Some of these more hardier greens that can be cooked down. I wouldn't recommend something like lettuce that I think gets cooked down really easily and then doesn't really maintain its crunch, but you totally could do it with that direction. Any other ideas for what kind of vegetables you could use from anybody else in the room?
Looks nice.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Anna. Anna posted my recipe for the braised cabbage. I think that's like that one, along with the butternut squash soup, has been my most requested video or my most requested recipe. So now I'm going to partake in my favorite, but everybody else's least favorite part of the class, which is me actually trying it and letting you know how it tastes. Bon appetit. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching.
That looks good.
Yummy.
So where should we be finding these recipes? You're going to be emailing them to us?
I can email them to Tina. Is that something we can do, Tina?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we can follow up with an email full of links to Kevin's recipes and this recipe he's eating right now.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, most of the recipes are on eatfresh.org.
Oh.
So this Brussels sprout hash one was taken directly from there. Yeah, it's really great. It's a little bit on the sweeter side, but I think it pairs really well with the egg. I also have, this is a little extra, but I just have some Tomatillo Salsa. This is super simple. You can buy this already made, or you can just boil up some tomatillos with any dried chili, blend it, add some salt, and that's basically all that this is. And I think I have a habit of making everything that I make into a taco, but I don't think that's a bad thing. But yeah, so even just adding a little bit of salsa on that. If you wanted a little bit more crunch on this, you could add like some sesame, or sorry, some pumpkin seeds or any other type of toasted nut. Yeah, this is a great option, especially for folks that are trying to eat more plant-based or trying to stick to a more vegetarian diet.
I think it's more there too.
What was that?
I think it makes the recipe a bit more rounded out because it's just like vegetables and eggs. I never thought to put it on a tortilla. So that's a great chef tip. I might add that on eatfresh.org.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a tortilla, right? It could be a piece of toast. It could be toast, yeah.
But tortillas are more fun to eat.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, that was the recipe for today. Thank you all for coming. I think we have a little bit more information on the slides regarding just the veggie vouchers. Let me pull that back up. Give me 1 second. Any questions on the recipe or anything that we went over?
Can you taste the maple syrup in the?
Yeah, just a little. It's just like a little bit of sweetness. But I really like it. It's just a little bit of sweetness. It like that, the maple syrup and the orange almost kind of come together to have that kind of like warm, what I consider like kind of like holiday sweetness. But it's not, yeah, whenever I'm making a dish that's savory, I don't add too much sweetness. Like just a little bit will really like bring out the other flavors.
I've seen that recipe 100 times, but I never knew there was maple syrup in it.
That was kind of the Chef Kevin adding a little bit of holiday spirit.
Oh, it's not in there. That was your
Yeah.
secret.
Yeah, that was a little secret. A little extra.
Well,
Nice.
thank you for sharing that secret with us, Kevin.
Of course. So yeah, like I mentioned, eatfresh.org, a bunch of cool recipes on there. Yeah, and I recommend for everybody that's looking into recipes to check them out, and also to remember, these recipes, they aren't meant to, be cooked every time strictly according to what it says. If you want to add some lemon juice to this, some maple syrup to this, some chili to this, you can definitely add your own take or something that would make it taste more like something that's good for your palate. I think the most important thing in cooking is tasting. So just make sure to taste as you're going. I think that's probably the biggest difference between like professional chefs and a home chef. Like a professional chef will taste something maybe like 10 times before they serve it because they want to make sure they get the taste exactly where they get it. All right. So really quickly in closing, if you are a San Mateo County resident, you'll get a $6 Veggie RX voucher for every workshop you attend. And is this still correct that the vouchers will be mailed out after the last one?
That is correct. Yes. So the last workshop of this series, because community days are on a monthly basis, it'll be mailed out in February. If you, how many people are here today? 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to mail them out after February. Sorry, everyone. But if you are super, super eager to get your vouchers, email me separately because I'm feeling generous this holiday season. So I can mail it out to you early if you really, really need it.
Oh, thank you for that, Anna. And this is just a quick list of the farmers markets that participate in this program, so where you could redeem them. This will be, I think this information will be emailed out at the end once we send out the vouchers. But to get the vouchers, you do have to do a little bit of work. We have a pre-workshop survey and a post-workshop survey. So this will be, I think it was mentioned, Tina, that you'll be sending an email with the recipes
Yes.
to the participants. Cool.
Yes. So Anna will send me a link, and then I can forward it over.
For sure. I'll paste this one in the chat just in case anybody wants to get ahead on that. But yeah, it's just a little survey just for our knowledge, just to ask you some quick questions. We really appreciate it if you give us some feedback, and then you get some money to use at your local farmers market. All right. Any questions?
Thank you so much.
No, thank you all for coming through. I really do hope that you all at least learned something new, one thing, even if it's just one thing. And even if that one thing was just, I'm gonna make more tacos with vegetables and eggs. I'm happy with that.
Are these original recipes? Or did you get them from books or somewhere?
Yeah, the recipes on Eat Fresh, some of them are from books and some of them are original. It's kind of
I
a
mean,
combo.
did you make up the one today?
Yeah, well, yeah, the taco, like making it into a taco and adding some maple syrup. That was just me thinking about this recipe as like more of a holiday or seasonal recipe. Yeah, but it's really simple. And if you follow everything on that recipe, basically the only thing that it was missing was either a little bit of orange juice or maple syrup, but the same recipe is exactly the same.
Okay.
All right, y'all. There's Anna's email. Like she mentioned, if you want to email her to talk about the vouchers to get them sooner. But thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Have a great holiday, Chef Kevin,
Bye.
Anna.
Thank you,
you. Take care.
everyone.